Jack Miller floated through the quiet corridor of Space Station Horizon, his magnetic boots clicking softly against the metal floor every few steps. At 32 years old, Jack was not remarkable in any way. He stood 5 feet 8 inches, tall with brown hair that needed a cut and a face that most people forgot soon after meeting him. As a maintenance engineer, he spent most days fixing things that broke down on the aging space station. He liked the quiet work and didn't mind that most of his co-workers barely noticed him. Today was supposed to be like any other day, but the station buzzed with nervous energy. For the first time in human history, representatives from the Krathar Empire had agreed to diplomatic talks. Everyone knew about the Krathar. They were massive reptilian warriors who had conquered 3 star systems in the past decade. Humans had managed to avoid war with them so far, but tensions were high. Miller, make sure the environmental systems in the East Wing are perfect, ordered Station Commander Lisa Grant as she passed him in the hallway. She didn't wait for his response. The delegation arrives in 3 hours, and I don't want any problems. Jack nodded even though she was already gone. He changed direction and headed toward the East Wing, his tool belt jingling softly against his hip. He didn't share the excitement that had gripped the rest of the station. Diplomats would do their talking in fancy rooms, and everything would go on as before. Nothing would change for people like him. When Jack reached the East Wing, he found it empty except for security personnel standing at attention near the main doors. He nodded to them and began checking the environmental controls, making small adjustments to ensure the temperature and air composition would be comfortable for both species. The oxygen level is 3% higher than their preference, Jack muttered to himself, turning a dial carefully. There, that should be better. A loud hiss from the main doors made Jack turn around. His eyes widened as he realized the Krathar delegation was arriving early. Security officers stood straighter, hands hovering near their weapons despite orders not to appear threatening. 4 enormous aliens ducked through the doorway, which was already designed for cargo transfer and much larger than a standard door. The Krathar stood between 7 and 8 feet tall, with muscular bodies covered in scales that ranged from deep green to nearly black. Their faces resembled earth lizards, but with more intelligence in their yellow eyes and subtle expressions. That seemed almost human, but it was the 5th Krathar that made Jack's breath catch. This one had to duck much lower to enter the room, standing nearly 9 feet tall. His scales were obsidian black with a pattern of scars that created pale lines across his massive chest and arms. His yellow eyes seemed to take in everything at once. Vorcath, war leader of the southern clans, announced one of the other aliens in surprisingly good English. Jack pressed himself against the wall, trying to become invisible as he had done, successfully so many times before. He should leave, he knew that. Engineering staff weren't supposed to be present for the diplomatic reception, but leaving now would draw attention, so he remained still, hoping to slip away when everyone focused on the formal greetings. The security team escorted the delegation toward the conference rooms, leaving Jack alone in the area. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding and returned to his work. The encounter left him feeling strangely unsettled. He had seen images of the Krathar before, but standing in the same room with them was different. They weren't just scary aliens from news reports anymore. They were real people. Different, yes, but still people. Jack finished his adjustments and was gathering his tools when he heard heavy footsteps returning down the corridor. He looked up to see the massive form of Vorcath approaching alone. Jack froze, wondering if he should run or stay still. The alien warrior stopped a few feet away, towering over Jack. Up close, Jack could see that what he had thought were decorative armor pieces were actually parts of an environmental suit with small lights indicating its functions. One section near the chest was blinking red. Your atmosphere irritates my scales, Vorcath said in a deep, rumbling voice. His English had a strange accent but was clearly understandable. The adaptation unit malfunctions. He tapped the blinking section with one clawed finger. Jack swallowed hard. Every instinct told him to stay quiet and hope the warrior would move on. The Krathar were known for their fierce tempers and had little patience for weakness. But something in the alien's eyes didn't match his fearsome appearance. There was frustration there and perhaps a hint of discomfort. I might be able to help, Jack said, surprised by his own courage. I'm good with mechanical systems. Vorcath's yellow eyes narrowed. You? A small human? Jack tried not to flinch at the dismissive tone. I'm an engineer. Fixing things is my job. The alien warrior studied him for a long moment. Then he let out what might have been a laugh, a rough, growling sound. You have courage, small human. Others of your kind scurry away when they see me. I'm not special, Jack said honestly. Just doing my job. Vorcath seemed to consider this, then nodded once and pointed to the blinking device. The filter system fails. It should remove the water particles from your air that irritate Krathar scales. Jack approached cautiously, examining the device without touching it. The design was alien, but he could recognize a filtration system when he saw one. May I? He asked, holding up a small tool from his belt. The warrior growled softly but nodded. Jack carefully opened the outer casing and peered inside. The problem became obvious quickly. Condensation had built up in one of the filters, probably due to the difference between the station's atmosphere and whatever the device was calibrated for. It's a simple fix, Jack explained as he worked. The humidity on our station is probably higher than your ship. The filter got overwhelmed. His fingers moved with practiced ease, cleaning the component and making a small adjustment to its sensitivity. Vorcath watched with intense interest. You do not fear me, he observed. Jack paused, considering the question. I respect what you could do to me, he said carefully. But fear doesn't help me fix things. This seemed to amuse the warrior. A practical philosophy. The light on the device changed from red to green as Jack closed the casing. There. That should work better now. Vorcath took a deep breath and seemed to relax slightly. The irritation lessens. You have skill, small human. Jack, he said, surprising himself again. My name is Jack Miller. The warrior placed one massive hand against his own chest, covering many of the scars there. I am Vorcath, battle lord of the Krathar Southern Territories. He studied Jack for another long moment. Your helpers and diplomats speak many words but say little. You say little but accomplish much. This is respected among my kind. Jack didn't know how to respond to that, so he simply nodded and began packing away his tools. The others of your station fear us, Vorcath continued. They are right to do so. We have destroyed those who opposed us. I've heard the stories, Jack admitted. Not stories. Truth. The warrior's expression became unreadable, yet you approached when you saw need. A voice called from down the corridor, one of the other Krathar looking for their leader. Vorcath straightened to his full, intimidating height. I will remember your assistance, Jack Miller, he said formally. Then he turned and walked away, his massive form disappearing around the corner. Jack stood alone in the corridor, his heart beating faster than normal. He had just had a conversation with one of the most dangerous beings in known space, and survived. More than that, he felt like something important had happened, though he couldn't explain why. As he walked back to his regular duties, Jack wondered if he would ever speak to the alien warrior again. He didn't realize that this brief encounter would change not only his life but the relationship between two species forever. 3 days passed since Jack's unexpected meeting with Vorcath. The space station buzzed with rumors about the ongoing negotiations. Most humans kept their distance from the Krathar delegates, watching them with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Jack went about his normal work, fixing broken systems and maintaining the station's equipment. He thought about his encounter with the alien warrior often but didn't mention it to anyone. On the 4th day, Jack was called to Commander Lisa Grant's office. He entered nervously, wondering if he had done something wrong. Miller, Commander Grant said, not looking up from her screen. I've received an unusual request from the Krathar delegation. Their war leader, Vorcath, has specifically asked for you to maintain the environmental systems in their quarters. She finally looked up, her expression puzzled. Do you know why? Jack shifted uncomfortably. I helped him fix his environmental suit a few days ago. It was having trouble with our humidity levels. Commander Grant's eyebrows shot up. You what? Why wasn't this in any report? It seemed like a small thing, Jack explained. Just a quick repair. I didn't think it needed a report. The commander sighed deeply. Miller, nothing is a small thing. When it comes to our first contact with a species that could destroy our colonies if negotiations fail. What exactly happened? Jack explained the encounter in detail. Commander Grant listened with increasing concern. Do you understand what you're risking, Miller? She asked when he finished. These creatures conquered the Centauri colonies in less than a week. They consider showing weakness punishable by death in their culture. He didn't seem offended, Jack said. He actually thanked me. Commander Grant rubbed her temples. The diplomats have spent years studying Krathar culture to avoid any missteps, and you just walked up and touched their war leader's personal equipment. She shook her head in disbelief. But since he's asking for you specifically, you'll go. Just be careful. Don't say anything about their politics, their expansion, or especially their appearance. They're extremely sensitive about all of those topics. Jack nodded seriously. Yes, Commander. And Miller, she added as he turned to leave. File proper. Reports after every interaction. That's an order. Jack made his way to the east wing where the Krathar delegation was housed. 2 human security officers and 2 massive Krathar guards stood outside the main entrance. Jack showed his engineering credentials and mentioned the request. The human guards looked skeptical, but one of the Krathar nodded slightly. The Battle Lord spoke of you, small one, the guard said, stepping aside. Enter. The Krathar quarters were different from the rest of the station. The lighting was dimmer and tinged with red. The temperature was noticeably higher, making Jack start to sweat immediately. The air felt drier, too. Jack spotted the environmental controls and went to work, checking that everything was functioning properly for the aliens' comfort. He was adjusting the humidity settings when a familiar deep voice spoke behind him. Your repairs to my suit remain effective, Jack Miller. Jack turned to see Vorcath standing there, as imposing as before. The massive alien wore less armor now, revealing more of his scarred black scales. I'm glad it's working well, Jack replied, trying to remember all of Commander Grant's warnings. Vorcath tilted his head slightly. The other humans avoid speaking with us except through their designated talkers, yet you work without fear. I'm just doing my job, Jack said, turning back to the control panel. No, Vorcath said. You were not assigned here until today. I requested you. Jack paused. Why? The alien warrior was silent for a moment. Curiosity. Your species is physically weak, yet you have expanded your territory and developed advanced technology. I wish to understand how you compensate for your weakness. Jack wasn't sure if he should be offended or not. We don't think of ourselves as weak. Your bones break easily, your skin tears, you cannot survive temperature extremes or radiation. By Krathar standards, you are fragile. Vorcath made a sound that might have been a laugh. Yet you approached me without hesitation when you saw a problem you could fix. It seemed like the right thing to do, Jack said honestly. Vorcath's yellow eyes studied him intently. The right thing, he repeated. This concept interests me. What makes an action right or wrong for humans? Jack realized he was having a philosophical discussion with an alien warrior and felt completely unprepared. That's a big question. Different humans would give different answers. What is your answer? Vorcath pressed. Jack thought for a moment. I guess I think about whether my actions help others or hurt them. Helping is right. Hurting is wrong. Unless it's necessary to help more people in the long run. Interesting. Vorcath moved to a seating area designed for his large frame and gestured for Jack to join him. For Krathar, strength determines right. The strong should lead and conquer. The weak should serve or perish. It is natural law. Jack hesitated, then sat in a chair that made him feel like a child due to its size. But your people have art, technology, and culture. Those things require cooperation, not just strength. Vorcath made a dismissive gesture with his clawed hand. Those who excel in combat may choose to allow those with other skills to serve the Empire. A warrior with no weapons is foolish. On Earth, our history is full of wars, Jack said carefully. But we've learned that cooperation often accomplishes more than conflict. Yet you prepare for war with us, Vorcath observed. Your outer colonies build weapons and defenses. Jack tensed, remembering Commander Grant's warning about politics. I'm just an engineer. I don't know much about that stuff. Vorcath's mouth curved in what might have been a smile, revealing sharp teeth. You speak truth. Most humans I meet tell pleasing lies. He leaned forward. Tell me about your work, Jack Miller. How does one small human maintain this vast station? Relieved by the change of subject, Jack explained his job. He described the various systems that kept the station functioning and the challenges of repairing them in zero gravity. Vorcath listened with surprising interest, occasionally asking questions that showed a deep understanding of engineering principles. As Jack spoke, he began to see past the alien's fearsome appearance. Vorcath was intelligent and curious. His questions were thoughtful, and he seemed genuinely interested in Jack's answers. Their conversation was interrupted when another Krathar entered the room. This one was slightly smaller than Vorcath, but moved with similar confidence. Battlelord, the humans have presented new terms for the mineral rights on the outer worlds, the newcomer said, then stopped abruptly when he noticed Jack. Why is this small one here? He demanded. He maintains our environmental systems, Kralvex, Vorcath replied calmly, and answers my questions about human engineering. Kralvex's eyes narrowed. The human diplomats would not approve of this private conversation. Perhaps they sent him to gather information. Jack started to protest, but Vorcath spoke first. Jack Miller is an engineer, not a spy. He lacks the deception skills needed for such work. Jack wasn't sure if he should be offended by that assessment, but he kept quiet. Nevertheless, Battlelord, we should not speak freely before any human, Kralvex insisted. Their appearance of weakness may be a strategy to lower our guard. Vorcath stood, towering over both of them. I will decide who I speak with, Second Claw. His tone left no room for argument. Kralvex bowed his head slightly. As you wish, Battlelord. He gave Jack a final suspicious look before leaving the room. I should go, Jack said, standing quickly. The environmental systems are working properly now. Vorcath nodded. Return tomorrow. The ventilation system makes an unpleasant sound that disturbs my sleep. Jack recognized the statement as the excuse it was, but nodded anyway. I'll check it out tomorrow. As he left the Krathar quarters, Jack wondered what Commander Grant would say about this development. He was forming something like a friendship with an alien that most humans feared. And strangest of all, he was looking forward to their next conversation. Over the next 2 weeks, Jack visited the Krathar quarters daily. He always had a legitimate reason: fixing the ventilation, adjusting the temperature controls, or maintaining the water recycling system. But after finishing his work, he would spend time talking with Vorcath. Their conversations covered many topics, from the differences between their home planets to the challenges of space travel. Jack learned that the Krathar evolved on a harsh desert world with limited resources, which explained their aggressive expansion to other planets. Vorcath, in turn, seemed fascinated by Earth's diverse ecosystems and the idea that creatures of different strengths could coexist. Your oceans contain both the largest animals and microscopic life, Vorcath said during one conversation. Yet, the small creatures are not simply food for the large ones. Everything has its place in the ecosystem, Jack explained. Even the smallest organisms are important. This concept seemed to trouble the alien warrior. It contradicted the Krathar belief that only the strong deserved to survive. Jack could see Vorcath struggling with these new ideas. Commander Grant called Jack to her office regularly for reports on these interactions. She seemed both worried and intrigued by the unusual friendship. The diplomatic team is making little progress, she admitted during one meeting. They're still stuck on basic trade agreements, yet you're having philosophical discussions with their war leader about Earth's ecosystems. He's curious about us, Jack said. I think the Krathar don't understand why we do things the way we do. And do you understand why they do things their way? Commander Grant asked. Jack thought about this. Better than before. Their world shaped them to value strength above all else. But I think Vorcath is starting to see that there are different kinds of strength. Not everyone approved of Jack's friendship with the alien warrior. Some of his fellow engineers avoided him in the mess hall, whispering that he was a lizard lover. Even worse was the growing tension among the Krathar delegation itself. While Vorcath seemed increasingly open to human ideas, Kralvex and several others viewed this as weakness. One day, as Jack was leaving the Krathar quarters, he encountered his co-worker Stephen Parker in the corridor. Stephen had always been friendly before, but now his expression was cold. "Having fun with your lizard friends?" Stephen asked, blocking Jack's path. "I'm just doing my job," Jack replied, trying to move past him. Stephen didn't budge. "My cousin was on Centauri Colony when they attacked. He barely escaped with his life. And here you are, chatting with them like they're not killers." "The diplomatic mission is trying to prevent more violence," Jack said. "That's a good thing, right?" "They only understand violence," Stephen said, his voice rising. "And now they're corrupting you too." Jack noticed a shadow falling over them and looked up to see Vorcath standing in the doorway of the Krathar quarters. The alien warrior's yellow eyes were fixed on Stephen, and his clawed hands were clenched into fists. "Is this human threatening you, Jack Miller?" Vorcath asked, his deep voice echoing in the corridor. Stephen's face went pale as he turned to see the massive alien. No, we were just talking," he stammered. "Your posture and tone indicate aggression," Vorcath said, stepping closer. "On my world, such disrespect would be answered with combat." Jack quickly moved between them. "It's just a misunderstanding, Vorcath." Stephen was leaving. He gave Stephen a meaningful look. Stephen backed away. "This isn't over, Miller," he muttered, before hurrying down the corridor. When Stephen was gone, Jack turned to Vorcath. "Thank you, but that could have made things worse." The alien warrior seemed confused. "I prevented a threat to you." "He wasn't really going to hurt me," Jack explained. "He was just angry and scared." "Fear often precedes violence," Vorcath said. "I have seen it many times." They walked together toward the observation deck, which had become their usual meeting place away from both human and Krathar eyes. Through the large windows, they could see the curve of the nearby planet and the stars beyond. "In my culture," Vorcath said after a long silence, "I would have been obligated to kill that human for showing such disrespect. It would be expected of a warrior of my rank." Jack looked at him in shock. "For just words?" "Words can reveal intentions. Weak leaders who ignore signs of disrespect soon face challenges to their authority." Vorcath's gaze remained fixed on the stars. "Your human ideas of forgiveness and understanding, they create confusion in my mind." Before Jack could respond, an alarm began blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridor. "Warning, critical system failure detected." "In the main reactor core," announced the station's computer voice. "All personnel proceed to emergency stations, preparing evacuation protocols." Jack's communication device buzzed. It was Commander Grant. "Miller, report to engineering immediately. We need all hands." "I have to go," Jack told Vorcath. "Something's wrong with the reactor." The alien warrior nodded. "I will return to my delegation. They will be unsettled by this development." As Jack hurried toward engineering, the station shuddered beneath his feet. This was no minor malfunction. When he arrived at the main engineering bay, he found chaos. Engineers rushed between control panels and security personnel were setting up barricades. Chief Engineer Alan Foster spotted Jack and waved him over. "Miller, we've got a cascade failure in the cooling system. Core temperature is rising fast." "What happened?" Jack asked, immediately checking the nearest display. "We don't know yet," Alan replied grimly. "But it started right after the Krathar. Delegation visited the lower level yesterday. Some people are saying it wasn't an accident." Jack stared at him. "You think the Krathar sabotaged the reactor?" "I'm just saying the timing is suspicious," Alan said. "And now we're looking at a complete meltdown in less than 3 hours unless we can stabilize it." Commander Grant entered the engineering bay, her face tense. "Status report?" "It's bad, Commander," Alan said. "The primary and secondary cooling systems are failing. We've initiated evacuation procedures, but we won't be able to get everyone off the station in time. There must be something we can do." Commander Grant insisted. Alan pointed to a schematic on the main screen. The only way to prevent a meltdown is to manually reset the cooling system from inside the radiation chamber. But the radiation levels are already too high for anyone to survive long enough to complete the procedure. Jack studied the schematic, thinking hard. The situation seemed hopeless, but something Vorcath had mentioned during one of their conversations came to mind. Crothar scales are naturally resistant to radiation, he said suddenly. Vorcath told me they can work in environments that would kill humans. Commander Grant looked at him sharply. Are you suggesting we ask the Crothar for help? The same people some of my crew suspect of causing this problem? If they caused it, why would they help fix it? Jack argued. And if they didn't, then we need their help to save the station, and everyone on it. Security Chief Amy Rodriguez, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. We've just received reports that the Crothar delegation is attempting to seize control of the remaining evacuation shuttles. Kralvex is leading them, claiming we set this up to eliminate their leaders. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The situation was spiraling toward violence exactly as Vorcath had predicted. Fear was leading to aggression on both sides. I need to find Vorcath, Jack said. He might be our only chance to prevent both a reactor meltdown and a fight over the evacuation shuttles. Commander Grant hesitated, then nodded. Go. But be careful, Miller. This friendship you've built is about to be tested in a way neither of you expected. Jack ran through the corridors of the space station, pushing past frightened crew members who were heading toward the evacuation points. The emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over everything. The station shuddered again, and Jack had to grab a wall to keep his balance. When he reached the area where the Crothar delegation had been staying, he found it empty. Following his instincts, Jack headed toward the shuttle bay. As he got closer, he could hear raised voices, both human and the deeper rumble of Crothar speech. The scene in the shuttle bay was tense. On one side stood Security Chief Amy Rodriguez, with 6 armed officers. Their weapons were drawn but pointed at the floor. On the other side were 5 Crothar warriors, including Kralvex, who stood at the front with his clawed hands on the controls of the largest shuttle. This shuttle belongs to the station, Amy was saying firmly. There are evacuation protocols for everyone. Your protocols would place Crothar lives in human hands, Kralvex replied. After your people sabotaged the station to eliminate our delegation, we would be fools to trust you. We didn't sabotage anything, Amy said. Why would we risk our own people? To make it seem convincing, Kralvex said. A calculated sacrifice to eliminate a threat. Jack scanned the area but didn't see Vorcath. He stepped forward, ignoring Amy's warning look. Kralvex, Jack called out. Where is Vorcath? The Crothar warrior's yellow eyes narrowed when he saw Jack. The Battle Lord searches for answers, in the lower decks. He still believes there may be an innocent explanation. His tone made it clear he thought Vorcath was being naive. The reactor is going to melt down unless we can reset the cooling system, Jack explained. But the radiation levels are too high for humans to survive the procedure. Convenient, Kralvex said. You damage your station, then ask us to risk our lives fixing it. If the reactor melts down, we all die, humans and Crothar, Jack said. Desperately. The evacuation shuttles won't get far enough away in time. This seemed to give Kralvex pause. One of the other Crothar warriors whispered something to him. We will take this shuttle and leave immediately, Kralvex decided. Any Crothar who wishes to live should board now. And the humans? Jack asked. They have other shuttles, Kralvex said dismissively. Not our concern. There aren't enough shuttles for everyone, Amy said. That's why we have protocols, to make sure the maximum number of people survive. Jack was about to argue further when another voice spoke from the entrance to the bay. Is this how warriors of the Crothar behave? Fleeing from danger and leaving allies to die? Everyone turned to see Vorcath standing there. Despite the emergency, he looked calm and imposing. He walked forward, his gaze fixed on Kralvex. They are not allies, Kralvex said. They are potential enemies who have shown their true intentions. With this attack, There was no attack, Vorcath said. I have seen the damaged systems. It was a mechanical failure, not sabotage. You cannot be certain, Kralvex argued. I am certain enough to not abandon those who have shown us hospitality, Vorcath replied. His gaze moved to Jack. You said the cooling system needs to be reset? Jack nodded quickly. From inside the radiation chamber, the radiation levels are lethal for humans within minutes. But not for Krathar, Vorcath said. Our scales provide some protection. Some protection isn't enough, Kralvex said. The radiation would still kill you, just more slowly. Then I will work quickly, Vorcath said simply. He turned to Jack. Show me what must be done. Kralvex stepped away from the shuttle controls, looking conflicted. Battlelord, the High Council would not approve of risking your life for humans. The High Council is not here, Vorcath said. I must decide based on honor, not politics. Jack led Vorcath back toward engineering, explaining the situation in more detail as they walked. When they arrived, Commander Grant and Chief Engineer, Alan looked surprised to see the massive alien warrior. He's agreed to help, Jack told them. Alan looked skeptical. Can he follow the technical procedure? It's complicated. I understand machinery, Vorcath said. Explain what must be done. Alan brought up the schematic on a screen. The primary cooling rods need to be manually reinserted into the reactor core. Then the reset sequence must be initiated from this control panel. He pointed to a section of the diagram. The problem is, by the time anyone reaches that panel, the radiation would be fatal. For a human, Vorcath said. My people evolved under higher radiation levels than yours. Our scales provide protection. Not complete protection, Commander Grant pointed out. This level of radiation would still be harmful to you. I understand the risk, Vorcath said. Jack studied the schematic. What if we work together? I know the station system's better, but Vorcath can withstand the radiation longer. You want to go in with him? Commander Grant asked, looking alarmed. I can guide him through the procedure, Jack said. And if we both work on it, we can finish faster. Alan shook his head. The radiation would kill you before you finished. Not if I leave once it reaches dangerous levels, Jack argued. Vorcath can finish alone. Commander Grant looked between Jack and Vorcath. This is incredibly dangerous for both of you. We don't have a choice, Jack said. The station will be destroyed in less than 2 hours otherwise. After a moment, Commander Grant nodded. All right. But we'll monitor your radiation exposure carefully. Miller, when it hits the danger threshold, you get out immediately. The engineering team quickly prepared radiation suits for both of them. The human suit was designed to provide maximum protection. The Krathar suit was modified from Vorcath's environmental suit, with extra shielding added wherever possible. As they prepared to enter the radiation chamber, Kralvex appeared with 2 other Krathar warriors. Battlelord, Kralvex said formally, the delegation has decided that this risk is too great for you alone. He stepped forward. I will accompany you. Vorcath looked surprised but nodded. Your assistance is welcome, Second Claw. Jack noticed that Kralvex still looked suspicious of the humans, but his respect for Vorcath seemed to outweigh his doubts. The radiation chamber was a large room at the heart of the station. Inside, they could see the reactor core glowing an ominous blue through its protective casing. The cooling rods that should have been containing the reaction were visible in their storage racks, disconnected from the core. The system should have automatically inserted the rods when it detected the overheating, Alan explained through their communication devices. But the mechanism failed. You'll need to manually override it. Jack, Vorcath, and Kralvex entered the chamber together. Almost immediately, Jack's radiation detector began beeping in warning. We need to work fast, Jack said. The control panel is on the far side. The rods need to be carried from the storage rack and placed into those slots by the core. Vorcath and Kralvex moved to the storage rack. The cooling rods were heavy, but the Krathar warriors lifted them easily with their superior strength. Jack went to the control panel and began the override sequence. As they worked, Jack could feel the heat even through his suit. His radiation detector beeped more urgently with each passing minute. Sweat dripped into his eyes, making it hard to see the controls. "Jack Miller," Vorcath called from across the chamber. "Your suit shows dangerous radiation levels. You must leave." Jack looked at the detector. It was flashing red. "But we're not finished yet." "We will complete the task," Vorcath said firmly. "You have shown us what to do. Now you must save yourself." Jack hesitated, torn between helping his friend and following the plan. "Go," Vorcath ordered. "Your sacrifice would be wasteful when we can finish without you." Reluctantly, Jack headed for the exit. As the chamber door closed behind him, he saw Vorcath and Kralvex working side by side, inserting the final cooling rods into the reactor core. Outside the chamber, the medical team immediately began treating Jack for radiation exposure. Through the thick window, he watched anxiously as the two Krathar warriors completed the task that would save the station, and everyone on it. Jack sat in the medical bay, watching the doctors move around him. It had been 6 hours since he left the radiation chamber. The station's emergency alert had stopped blaring 3 hours ago, when the reactor cooling system finally stabilized. Everyone was safe, but Jack couldn't relax. He hadn't heard any news about Vorcath or Kralvex. "Your radiation exposure was significant but not life-threatening," Dr. Megan Brown told him. "You'll need daily treatments for the next week, but you should make a full recovery." "What about the Krathar?" Jack asked. "The ones who were in the chamber after me?" Dr. Brown's expression became more serious. "Their biology is different from ours. We're not sure how to treat them effectively. Our medical team is working with their healers, but—" She didn't finish the sentence. Jack tried to get up. "I need to see them." "You need to rest," Dr. Brown insisted, gently pushing him back onto the bed. "Commander Grant left orders. She'll come speak with you when she can." Jack reluctantly stayed in bed, but his mind was racing with worry. After everything they had been through, he couldn't bear the thought that Vorcath might die from radiation poisoning after saving the station. An hour later, Commander Grant entered the medical bay. She looked tired but relieved. "The station is secure," she told Jack. "The reactor is stable and all emergency systems are functioning normally. The evacuation has been called off." "That's good," Jack said. "But what about Vorcath and Kralvex?" "Commander," Grant sat in the chair beside his bed. "Kralvex is recovering. The Krathar scales do provide significant radiation protection, as Vorcath said. Their healers believe Kralvex will survive with some scarring." "And Vorcath?" Jack asked, dreading the answer. "He was exposed much longer," Commander Grant said softly. "He stayed to make sure every system was properly reset. The doctors aren't sure if he'll survive." Jack felt like something heavy was pressing on his chest. "I need to see him." This time, Commander Grant didn't argue. "He's in a separate medical unit set up for the Krathar. I'll take you there when the doctor clears you." 2 hours later, Jack walked slowly beside Commander Grant to the Krathar medical unit. His body ached from the radiation exposure, but he ignored the pain. When they entered the room, they found several Krathar gathered around a large medical bed where Vorcath lay. The mighty warrior looked different now. His obsidian scales had lost their shine and many had fallen off, revealing pale skin underneath. His breathing was shallow and labored. Kralvex stood at Vorcath's side. When he saw Jack, he moved toward them. "The Battle Lord asks for you," Kralvex said, surprising Jack. He woke briefly and spoke your name. Jack approached the bed cautiously. Vorcath's eyes were closed, but they fluttered open when Jack stood beside him. "Jack Miller," Vorcath said, his voice weaker than Jack had ever heard it. "You survived." "Thanks to you," Jack said, feeling a lump in his throat. "You saved everyone on the station." Vorcath made a small gesture with his hand. "A warrior's duty." "You're going to be okay," Jack said, trying to sound confident. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." "Strength is not always enough," Vorcath replied. "But I learned from you that there are many kinds of strength." He paused, seeming to gather energy. "In Krathar tradition, a warrior weakened beyond recovery should face ritual execution rather than a dishonorable slow death. Jack felt a chill run through him. "That's not going to happen," he said firmly. "Some of the delegation believe it should," Vorcath said, glancing at the other Krathar in the room. "Kralvex has postponed the decision until we return to our homeworld." "You're not going to die," Jack insisted. "Not from the radiation and not from some ritual. I won't let that happen." Vorcath's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. "Your determination is admirable, small human. But some traditions are deeply ingrained." A Krathar healer approached and said something in their language. Kralvex nodded and turned to Jack. "The Battle Lord needs rest," he said. "You may return tomorrow." Jack reluctantly left, but his mind was working furiously. He needed to find a way to help Vorcath, both medically and culturally. If the Krathar tradition demanded death for warriors who couldn't recover, he had to prove that Vorcath would recover. Back in his quarters, Jack searched the station's database for information about radiation treatment. Most of it was too technical for him to understand, but he noticed that certain metals could help block or reduce radiation effects. One in particular, a rare element called xanthium, was used in advanced radiation therapy. Jack checked the station's inventory and found that they had a small amount of xanthium in the research lab. It wasn't much, but it might help. He also remembered something Vorcath had told him about Krathar healing rituals involving mineral-rich mud from their homeworld. The next morning, Jack went to the research lab and, with the help of a scientist friend, created a treatment paste using the xanthium and minerals similar to those found on the Krathar homeworld. It was an experimental approach, but Jack was desperate to try anything. When he returned to the Krathar medical unit, he found the situation tense. Several warriors were arguing with Kralvex in their language. Vorcath lay still on the bed, seemingly unconscious. "What's happening?" Jack asked a Krathar healer who stood nearby. "They debate the Battle Lord's fate," the healer replied quietly. "His condition worsens. Some believe the mercy ritual should be performed here, rather than waiting to return home." Jack pushed past the arguing warriors and approached Kralvex. "I have something that might help," he said, showing the container of metallic paste. "It contains elements that could help his body fight the radiation damage." Kralvex looked skeptical. "Our healers have tried all known treatments." "This is different," Jack insisted. "It combines your healing traditions with our science. Please, let me try." After a moment's hesitation, Kralvex nodded. "The Battle Lord would want to try the human way, I think." Under the watchful eyes of the Krathar, Jack carefully applied the paste to Vorcath's damaged scales. The warriors watched silently, some looking doubtful, others curious. "Now we wait," Jack said when he finished. 3 days passed with no significant change. Jack visited twice daily to apply more of the paste and to talk to Vorcath, even though the warrior remained unconscious most of the time. The debates among the Krathar continued, but Kralvex held firm against those who wanted to perform the mercy ritual. On the 4th day, Jack entered the medical unit to find Vorcath sitting up in bed. His scales were still damaged, but his eyes were clear and alert. "Jack Miller," Vorcath said, his voice stronger. "Your strange medicine seems effective." Joy washed over Jack. "You're getting better?" "The healers say the radiation damage has stopped spreading," Vorcath confirmed. "New scales are beginning to form." Kralvex approached them. "The Battle Lord will recover his strength," he said. "Perhaps not all of it, but enough to lead with honor." "Enough to avoid the mercy ritual?" Jack asked bluntly. Kralvex nodded. "There will be no ritual. The Battle Lord has shown a different kind of strength, one worthy of respect." 1 month later, Jack stood in the shuttle bay watching as the Krathar delegation prepared to return to their homeworld. The diplomatic mission had ended successfully with trade agreements and a non-aggression pact between humans and the Krathar Empire. Vorcath approached Jack. The warrior had recovered significantly, though some of his new scales were lighter in color, creating a pattern across his body that other Krathar regarded with respect rather than pity. "Our paths separate here, Jack Miller," Vorcath said. "Will I see you again?" Jack asked. "I believe so," Vorcath replied. "I have been appointed as permanent ambassador to human worlds. It seems my understanding of your species is considered valuable. Jack smiled. And Kralvex? He returns as a hero to our homeworld, Vorcath said. He will teach others what we learned here, that strength comes in many forms, and that cooperation can achieve what conquest cannot. Vorcath held out his massive hand. Jack took it, feeling the rough scales against his skin. One small human proved that greatness lies in actions, not stature, Vorcath said solemnly. My people will not forget this lesson. As the Krathar shuttle departed, Commander Grant stood beside Jack. You changed the course of history, she said. Not bad for a maintenance engineer. Jack shook his head. I just fixed things that were broken. It's what I do. Including relations between two species, Commander Grant said with a smile. I think you're due for a promotion. Jack watched as the shuttle became a distant point of light among the stars. His friendship with Vorcath had begun with a simple act of kindness, offering help when it was needed. That simple action had led to understanding, and understanding had led to peace. Sometimes, Jack thought, the bravest thing wasn't facing down a fearsome alien warrior, but seeing past appearances to recognize a potential friend. And sometimes one small human could make all the difference in the universe.